The Prepper Historian channel thrives on the kind of history most people never hear about. So, before we dive in, make sure you subscribe. What you're about to learn isn't classroom material or recycled trivia. This is the kind of overlooked, ground-level knowledge that reveals how real soldiers adapted, improvised, survived, and changed the course of frontline warfare. For the next minute, stay with me, because this story is far more than a relic pulled from the mud. It's a lesson in practicality, resourcefulness, and survival mindset, something every serious historian and every prepper can take and immediately apply. The tool we're about to unpack saved lives in the trenches, was quietly retired after the war, and today barely gets mentioned outside of a few specialist collections. Yet its design, its purpose, and its improvisational nature carry lessons you can use right now in fieldcraft, home preparedness, and hands-on survival work. The story begins with a simple, overlooked object that soldiers depended on daily. During the First World War, soldiers were issued standard entrenching tools. These were meant for digging firing positions, building trench walls, or clearing debris. But honestly, anyone who has ever dug in wet clay or fought with compacted soil knows a single shovel isn't enough. The battlefield demanded a tool that could strike, probe, pry, carve, cut and dig without breaking or slowing down the man carrying it. That is where the WWI multi-use trench tool came in. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't standard issue early on, and, well, it certainly wasn't the kind of object generals wrote about in reports. Yet frontline troops swore by it. It was equal parts shovel, pick, hatchet, pry bar and hand-to-hand weapon. In the cramped, brutal, resource-stripped conditions of trench warfare, it became as essential as a rifle. When you handle one of these tools today, you understand instantly why soldiers valued it. The small blade could chop roots, slice brush, hack out firing steps, or carve drainage channels. The pointed end acted like a miniature pickaxe, giving soldiers leverage in tight spaces. And unlike the fragile folding tools that came decades later, this design was thick, solid, and nearly indestructible. It was built for constant abuse. The value of this tool becomes clear when you understand the conditions in which it was used. Trenches weren't static lines the way people imagine them. They were constantly collapsing, flooding, choking with mud, or being reshaped by shell fire. A soldier had to react fast. If a parapet blew out, you didn't wait for engineers, you grabbed your trench tool. If a dugout entrance caved in and trapped a man inside, the only thing between him and suffocation could be the nearest soldier's improvised pick-shovel hybrid. Accounts from veterans mention cases where this tool saved men from burial by loose soil, where it broke apart tree roots, securing enemy wire entanglements, or where it was the only implement small enough to open a firing loophole without exposing the worker. Think of it this way, the tool wasn't just for digging earth. It reshaped the fighting environment. It allowed soldiers to build cover, dismantle obstacles, and react instantly without depending on supply chains or large equipment. The modern prepper will immediately recognize the mindset here. The tool was a multiplier. It expanded what a single individual could do under pressure. Its use extended far beyond construction because trench warfare was rarely limited to spades. Close-quarters combat in trenches was fast, violent and extremely constrained. Rifles were too long, bayonets were unwieldy. That's why trench clubs, sharpened entrenching tools and improvised weapons became so common. This multi-use tool wasn't designed as a weapon, but its weight and shape meant soldiers used it as one when needed. Veterans wrote about it breaking helmets, crushing wooden rifle stocks, and disabling enemy sentries in those narrow communication trenches. It wasn't something soldiers bragged about, but honestly, it was part of the daily reality of surviving at distances measured in inches. From a historical standpoint, this is important, because it really shows how battlefield adaptation works. The best tools in wartime are often those that perform tasks outside the designer's original intent. That's a principle preppers can apply immediately. Always select gear that earns its weight by doing more than one job, and, test it in conditions that mimic reality, not theory. Understanding why the tool vanished helps clarify why it still matters today. After the First World War, militaries moved towards standardized, mass-produced entrenching tools with folding mechanisms. These were easier to pack and cheaper in bulk, but unfortunately they were far weaker. Industrial designers valued portability over ruggedness. The multi-use tool simply didn't fit the new logistics mindset. And by the Second World War, variations of folding shovels replaced it almost entirely. What disappeared wasn't just a piece of kit, it was a philosophy. The original trench tool embodied resilience, improvisation, and hard-use practicality. Its disappearance replaced durable utility with fragile convenience. Collectors today often find these tools rusted, bent, or heavily worn because they were used to the point of exhaustion. That level of wear tells you everything you need to know. Soldiers didn't throw them away. They depended on them. Here's how you can apply the lessons of this forgotten tool in a practical modern way. If you're a historian, reenactor or survivalist, start by evaluating your tools the same way a trench soldier would. Ask yourself whether the tool can break roots, pry rocks, dig trenches, carve wood, and defend you if absolutely necessary. If not, consider upgrading. Out in the field, you really ought to test your gear in all sorts of conditions. Wet soil, frozen dirt, and even compacted clay. Honestly, you shouldn't wait until an emergency hits to figure out how your equipment behaves when it's under a bit of stress. These days, a modern equivalent could be something like a compact fixed-blade hatchet-shovel hybrid. You might take it camping and say, try digging a small drainage trench during a rainstorm, or maybe clearing roots around a tarp line. The more tasks you can handle with just one item, the more resilient you'll be if your gear fails or resources start running thin. That was the lesson soldiers picked up in the trenches, and, well, it's still one of the strongest truths in survival work today. This forgotten tool from the First World War, it continues to teach us how to prepare, endure, and adapt, even today. For serious history buffs, this isn't just a story about a piece of metal. It's a reminder that tools evolve the same way tactics do. And for survivalists, well, it's a clear message. Durability and versatility are never outdated. Whether you're studying frontline artifacts or refining your own kit, the principles behind this trench tool remain as relevant now as they were over a century ago. If you found this valuable, subscribe to The Prepper Historian and, share this guide with someone who takes history and preparedness as seriously as you do.